That time I didn't know I was muted. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Good morning. If you're not connected to Jeff, you need to. His weekly blog is so powerful. I will copy and paste it and send it to the team. Last week's, particularly last Saturday, Sunday, I forget what day it comes in. I should know. Was straight into the point. In fact, someone that was on my team that's on a different team now, I sent it to him. He goes, "Ouch!" It's speaking the truth. So can't wait for that.
The truth, David, I've found so far is undefeated. And that's something that I continue to return to myself. It's something I continue to return to with my clients. It's you have to remember that, because the truth always comes out. It's better to just start there. And something I've been working on actually just came out in conversation, recording for another summit actually on Thursday. When you're selling, sometimes you have to tell people things that they don't want to hear, but they need to. That's part of becoming a trusted advisor. It's part of being a trusted advisor. But what's interesting is, even if it's something they don't want to hear, when they realize it's the truth, they feel more comfortable with you. If you tell them something they don't want to hear and it's not true, they're going to hate you. You tell them something that they need to hear, even if they don't want to hear it, but it's true, they will like you. They will respect you at the very least. I don't know if they'll like you, but they will respect you at the very least. And I think that's something we have to reconcile as sales professionals, because, for a long time, people like us have been given a bad rap for selling snake oil and making promises they can't keep and, whatever. But no one ever gets mad at you for telling them the truth, for very long anyway. And I just think that is, I haven't heard anybody talk about that. Everybody just talks about, well, just don't be salesy. Well, I'd rather be salesy, because I like to make sales. And when you're salesy, it means you're someone who makes sales. There's just a way to do it. And I think we have to reckon with the truth. I think that's a key to it.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned about starting with the truth. If you start with the truth, then you end with the truth. And that's all there is. I was with a project once that was going very far under right out. It was too aggressive. And we were in trouble. The company was in trouble financially, and we had a lot of people asking for money and that they deserved. And had someone say, "You can tell them whatever you want, just don't start believing it." And that's the other challenge of not telling the truth. You start believing the untruth, and then you are just totally untrue. I ended up leaving that organization. Jeff's like, "How'd you stay around?" I didn't.
Wow.
So that's a whole other side. It was way too aggressive, but the truth, if you're going to lead with integrity, there's no way you can be an integrity-minded person without being truthful. And you're right. Sometimes the truth will hurt, but it will not hurt for very long. It's something people need to hear.
Well, and it's not just that it won't hurt for very long. It actually brings people closer to you.
Yep.
That's the counterintuitive part. But, I learned this a long time ago. If you always tell the truth, you can have a really short memory. It makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to keep track of things I said.
Right. That happened to me this week. There's someone that looked at my LinkedIn profile from the past, and I was thinking back. It's like, okay, I was placing this person in a certain, and it's like, I'm always honest and friendly and helpful. Like when we connect, I have nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
Did we all get the plaid memo today? Is this
yeah?
Jeff, we went, I'm not exactly sure. I think we're ultra in sync. Yesterday, as you were interviewing Carol Mahoney with her book Buyer First, it was just for 15 minutes. Just I'm jotting stuff down. Then the questions were going, which I love your live questions, by the way. I think we're gonna do some of that today. And then so I was like, I need to hit screen record. It was just succinct point. I was like, I'm gonna hit screen recording because I need the next whatever comes out of their mouth. And right when I hit screen recording, it's literally, I want to be more salesy. And you went into this like perfect. I couldn't have synced with you better had I texted you and said, give me 1 minute and 20 seconds of what everyone needs to hear right now to go grab new market share. It was perfect, beautiful. So I screen recorded, threw it up on LinkedIn. So you guys go check it out. But and follow Carol, by the way, too. But Jeff, again, thank you for being in our lives, being invested in, you do your charity coaching event every year, golf for charity, coach for charity. And we love you for that. And I just feel like your heart aligns so much with ours, not just in the plaid shirts, but also in the give back into the sales community. So thank you for being here with us today. And just by way of a professional introduction, not that we need a professional because, man, I count you a friend. But folks, his LinkedIn is in the chat now. Please connect with Jeff on LinkedIn. Go follow his podcast as well. But Jeff's been helping salespeople uncover the truth about what holds them back and empowering them with the tools that enable their best work. And I like that because when Jeff says best work and says rethink the way you sell, like when he says that, you think it makes you stop and think. And then Jeff told me something, I don't know when you coached me first, Jeff, maybe 3 years ago. And when I first met you, and you said, Tim, sell like you. Don't try to be him. Don't try to be her. Sell like you. And it was like this big old burden just rolling off my back, feeling like, and so really enabled me to come up, like live in my mantra of, if you're not having fun, David's my mantra. If you're not having fun in sales, you are probably doing something wrong. So every time I get around Jeff, he helps me have fun in sales. We have fun together. We wear plaid shirts together. Jeff, thanks for being on, man. And take it away. I'm excited to talk about refining your sales focus.
It's interesting because I've gotten this question a lot regarding time management and things. And, I think most people, if you've been selling for longer than 6 months, you have a pretty good idea of what it takes to make sales. And there's some training that you can get, that you can certainly refine your skills. We can always refine our skills, but I mentioned earlier that, the truth is undefeated. Execution is undefeated. Do the work. Worry about doing it better later, but do it first, and, where I grew up in orthopedics and selling total knee replacements, total hip replacements, and things like that, we found in the operating room that perfect gets in the way of really good quite often. And one of the technologies that I sold enabled physicians, surgeons to have their bone cut accuracy to within 0.5 millimeter, which is less than half the thickness of the saw blade that they use to make these implants. And so when they had this new information, all of a sudden they wanted to be absolutely perfect. Never mind the fact that they weren't perfect before they started using this technology, but then all of a sudden you have these orthopedic surgeons thinking they can just go back and freehand a 0.5 millimeter cut. And it's like, doc, you are bringing on way more trouble than you're asking for right now. What we have is so good, you wouldn't have been able to perceive this before you started using this system. Let's not let perfect get in the way of really good. Let's not try to go for perfect and end up screwing everything up, because I've seen that happen. But I think what salespeople tend to forget is, and it's a little bit different because you can't really screw it up. It's really hard to screw things up. And most people that I talk to, most people that I work with, that I coach, that I train, they're afraid of messing things up, so afraid to mess things up that they over-prepare, they overanalyze, and they get in their own way. And all this mental trash prevents them from just doing the work that they need to do. And so when it comes to time management, I thought about this, right? And Tim, you've seen this framework that I'm going to share, and I want to preface this a little bit. I want to talk about where this came from. And then what I want to do is prompt everybody who's listening right now, everybody who's watching. I want you to start thinking, maybe jot a couple notes down for yourself. I want you to think about the things that stop you from executing. Because I can get up here and I can talk about time management, and I can talk about 80-20, and I can talk about the Pomodoro method, and I can tell you to go get an egg timer or set the timer on your phone or something like that. I can tell you to do that, and you'll say, oh yeah, duh. And then you'll do it for like 3 days. You might get through an entire work week, and then you'll stop. And the thing about Pomodoro, the thing about the 80-20 principle. Why am I blanking on the name? The Pareto principle, 80-20, right? Focus on the things that make the biggest impact. Spend a dedicated amount of time on them. Oh, just color code your calendar and make sure that from 9 to 11 a.m. you've got time blocked for prospecting. The problem is not that you don't have a block on your calendar. The problem is that when that block shows up, you still don't do it. So what are we doing here as it relates to time management? What are we doing here as it relates to focus? What are we doing here as it relates to intention? Because nothing that I tell you over the next, 30 minutes or so, nothing that I tell you is going to make an impact if you don't do it. So all the training, all the coaching, all the books, the podcasts, the videos, the virtual charity summits on Saturday mornings and college football Saturdays, right in the fall. All the great work that we're doing, all the great intention, all the great dopamine hits that we get from, oh, I did something good for myself today. Nothing happens if you don't recognize and do something about the things that are stopping you from doing that stuff already. A shiny new toy doesn't do much to help you. The joke among my friends, we play a lot of golf, is that there's never been a bad swing that couldn't be cured by a new club for 10 minutes. All of a sudden, you're hitting it great. And then you go out there, you buy the club, you get to your first tee, and it's still a big slice into the woods because you forgot that everywhere you go, there you are. So I want you to keep that stuff in mind, okay? So what I'm going to do, and Tim, if you can allow me to present, because I'm going to share my screen,
Yeah,
but I do it weird. You'll see in a minute.
You should be able to. Let me know if any trouble. Just
make sure you highlight me. If you're watching, you're going to want to highlight me on speaker mode, because when I share my screen, I do a picture-in-picture thing. So if I'm just in a corner of your screen, you're not going to be able to see much of this. So this is, many of you have seen, this is an Eisenhower matrix, or what Stephen Covey called the time management matrix. And this is where we plot our priorities, right? What is urgent and what is important? And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I want to just go through it really quickly because it's the basis for the framework that I built over the top of it. So we've got importance on the vertical axis here. We've got urgency on the horizontal axis. And in quadrant 1, you've got that which is urgent and important. This is the stuff that we have to do, and it ends up on our plate. Your time, your biggest priorities fall in this category, this quadrant. There's a good portion of your day is going to be spent in this quadrant. Now, we move on to quadrant 2. Covey called this the quadrant of personal growth. These are the things that are not urgent, but very important. This is personal development. This is self-care. This is quiet time, alone time, thinking time, meditation time. This is where you build in your long-term priorities. This is the stuff that we take for granted because we're all immortal. We're never going to get old. We've got all the time in the world to get to that bucket list. We don't even have a bucket list because why would we even think about that? No, these are the things that are so important that we take them for granted. But this is where all of our quality of life comes from. Family time, friend time, personal time, career development time. Look off into the horizon, at the sunset, what could be possible kind of time, right? Don't ignore this. It's the easiest one to ignore. It's the most important one. That's the paradox. That's why life is challenging. You get to quadrant 3. This is what Covey called the quadrant of deception, because this is where we pay attention to things that are urgent but not important. But the fallacy is that urgency masks itself as important, right? All those little red circles on your phone, all the people trying to get your attention, all your LinkedIn notifications and your Facebook notifications and the phone calls and oh my gosh, I need you right now. We tend to forget that if you didn't answer that phone call, that person would still be okay. If you didn't respond to every text message, that person would be okay. Just because Facebook wants to get in touch with you, or Slack or whatever, doesn't mean that that's more important than the thing that you're doing right now. Chances are it's not. So this is the quadrant of deception, because this is where we have to use our brains. This is where we have to think. This is where we have to triage. We have to decide what's worth acting on and what isn't. My suggestion here is to shut off as many of those red circles on your phone as possible. Unless you're selling a lot of things over Instagram, and most of you are not, there's no reason for you to have a little red circle that pops up when someone liked your photo. Give me a break. That's a dopamine hit that we all like. But tell me, is that something you need to be responding to at 1:30 in the afternoon near the end of a quarter? I mean, look, we're halfway through the month of September. This is a quarter end coming up. You got to think about where you are putting yourself in positions to be distracted. That's the easiest way. Set the boundary ahead of time. Quadrant 4 is what Covey called the quadrant of waste. These are things that are not urgent and not important. We need to minimize as much time as we can, right? The key here, and I want to state this very clearly and plainly, the key here is that we know quadrant 1, out of our control. It's urgent and important. The house is on fire and it's our house. We don't have any control there, but we accept that some of that stuff's going to happen. Quadrant 2, that's where we need to spend more time, but we don't. The only way we can spend more time in quadrant 2 is eliminating or reducing, at the very least, the amount of time we spend in 3 and 4. Everybody gets the same 24 hours in the day as Beyonce, right? How does she get way more done than we do? And no, it's not because of her assistants and her team and everything. Of course, that happens. But when you have your priorities straight, look at every top performer you've ever worked next to. They spend more time focused. They spend more time on the things that are important to them. They're focused on things that are important to them. That's why they get more done. They don't actually get more done. It just, you get the same amount done. It's just how much of what you get done amounts to water cooler talk, gossip, scrolling, social media. You know, what are you doing? And look, some of that stuff's important because you got to check out. I'm not one of these guys that says that he can get 3 days worth of productivity done in a single day. And, you know, look at me, how much I accomplished. Like that, look, you got to have a pretty good idea of what your purpose is and where your integrity aligns with that purpose. But think about what you're not getting done that you could be, and think about how you prioritize that. So now, as this relates to selling, as this relates to territory management, as this relates to growing your business, particularly in an established marketplace where you've got a good reputation, where you've got clients that need your time, clients that need your attention. How do we take a look at growing your territory, growing your business, your book of business? How do we take a look at growing that holistically? Well, I've changed the labels on these axes. Okay, the vertical axis is growable versus not growable. The horizontal axis is accessible or not accessible. So let's not think about our clients as new clients versus old clients. Let's think about them in terms of growable clients and accessible clients. And if you can keep in the back of your mind that old Covey matrix here, we're going to have a similar layout. In quadrant 1, you've got those that are growable and accessible. They have room for you to do more business with them. You can pick up wallet share here. Oh, by the way, they'll take your call. This is where you should be spending most of your time, as much time as possible. You are ignoring some of these. You're ignoring some of these clients. You don't even realize it. I'm going to show you how to score this a little bit later. Your eyes are going to be opened a little bit differently to how this can be approached. But first and foremost, recognize the prospects in your area that you have the access to and that you can grow with. And let's make sure that there are priorities. In quadrant number 2, you've got those clients that you want to do business with. You know there's a lot of business to be done. These are your dream clients. You know exactly who they are. The problem is they don't know who you are, and you're finding it difficult to get in front of them. So they are very growable. They're not very accessible. Prospecting, networking. What are we doing to intentionally put ourselves in front of these particular strangers? That's what you have to be thinking about. That's what no salesperson wants to think about, though, because quadrant 3, these are clients that are not very growable. We have to be honest, but they're highly accessible. This is your milk run. When your manager comes to town, where do you take them? You take them to these places because it's all back slaps and high fives and handshakes and hugs. Great to see you. Oh, you do such a great job. Yep. Everybody likes to feel good. Everybody likes that dopamine hit. Once again, everybody likes to be in a position where they go to the place where everybody knows their name and they're always glad you came and whatever. But we got to think about this. Just because they can see you, just because they like you, doesn't mean you can grow with them. Your job is to grow, not to maintain, not to stay stagnant. But what do we tell ourselves? Ooh, but I have to go there. If I don't show up every other Thursday with donuts, then Mindy at the front desk is going to be mad. And Sherry, the CEO, she's going to be upset with me too. No, they're not. These are business people. Let me ask you this. Do you want to align yourself with the kind of customers that'll be upset when you don't bring pastries to the office? Or do you want to be associated with the kind of clients that are going to help you grow your business because you help them grow theirs? Let's think a little bit about the stories we tell ourselves. Let's think a little bit about the superstitions that we allow ourselves to believe. And let's recognize that taking donuts every other Thursday to that office at that side of town is not what's keeping you business. It's not what's keeping that business for you. You're providing some value that somebody else can't provide. Because you know what? Every other Wednesday, your competitor goes to the same donut shop. So what are we really doing to establish ourselves as value creators, as trusted advisors, as resources? My contention here is that you can spend half the time in this quadrant that you do and keep all of the business. So I'm going to challenge you to challenge that thought. I'm going to challenge you to see, to feel, to focus perhaps on what really matters with those clients so you can keep all of that business. Now, I want to cover something really quickly here because quadrant 4, we really don't need to pay attention to. These are not growable. They're not accessible. But if I don't complete this symmetry here, then my mind goes a little haywire. So let me mention quadrant 4, but we don't need to really pay attention to it. I want to go back to quadrant 3 here. How do we leverage these accounts, though? How do we leverage these customers? How do we leverage these client relationships? Well, see, the only way that you can spend half the time with them but keep all of the business is by knowing how to best spend that time. How do you focus on what really matters? Well, you have to have really good conversations with your best clients. The good news is these are the clients that are most willing to have these kinds of conversations. The better news is when you get to know what's really important to them, you can not only focus on what's important to them, which frees up a ton of time, but you also get the exact kind of messaging and language that you need to find more clients like them. And when you build the environment to have those kinds of conversations, you actually set yourself up to ask for the referrals that might move those potential clients from quadrant 2 over to quadrant 1, or they might bring someone who's not even on your radar right in front of you and put them right into quadrant 1 for you. So very simple framework for having these conversations. I've got a document. Tim, I think I shared it with you to share with this group. If not, I'll get it to you. You can have it later. I call it 5 killer questions for great customer conversations. And I want to open the floor for questions. I want to dig into this. So I'll be able to go into this in a little more detail later if you want, but I'm going to run through these 5 right now. The first one is, why did you do business with us the first time? The second question is, can you please be more specific? This is not just for a laugh. This is a real question that you want to ask somebody, because if you are going to get what you need from them, if you're going to get the real answers, you're going to get the real messaging, you're going to need to create a space where they feel vulnerable, or they're allowed to feel vulnerable enough to share it with you. You ask that first question, why did you buy from us? They're going to say something about your persistence. They're going to say something about your professionalism. They're going to say something about the value you provide. They're going to say something about the logo on your card. But that's not going to help you. What you need to say is, Tim, we've been working together now for 3 years. And I really appreciate what you bring to my business. And it feels like you appreciate what brings to mine, or what I bring to yours. can you help me better understand with a little bit more specificity what that is? Getting notifications on my iPad here. Because I would love to have just a couple of more clients just like you.
Yeah.
And it would mean the world to me to have those clients just like yours, because I'd way rather have clients like you than clients like Sam over there.
Yep.
So it would really be helpful to me if you could be a little more specific. Can we dig into that? Can we dig into what that value looks like to you? Right? You have to let your guard down in order for them to let theirs down. You have to take the lead here. But when you're willing to get vulnerable, they'll be willing to get vulnerable. And that's where the truth comes out. That's a callback from before I started. And David, I know you're smiling now.
Yes.
So now that we've got the space where we can have a meaningful conversation, I'm going to ask, okay, now, why do you continue to do business with me? You're going to get a different answer here than you did for the first one, right? Why they first did business with you is different from why they're continuing to do business with you. Questions 4 and 5 are like peas in a pod. Do you know anybody who might also appreciate this kind of value? And would you be willing to introduce us? Simple 5-step framework. If you can get through question 3, it's a win. Once you've gotten through question 3, ask 4 and 5. Anybody can do that. Very simple framework. 90% of customers and clients would be willing to pass referrals. 10% of sales reps ask. That is a glaring disparity. So what does that do for your time management? What have you done? I've just given you a way, very simple way to think differently about your territory. I'm going to show you how to score these leads now, so you get a different perspective as objectively as possible. And I want you to think of your top, this is my activity for you right now. Write down your top 10, maybe your top 20. Just list them. Your top 20 accounts, your top 20 clients. Just list them from top to bottom. No particular order. We're going to reorder them in a minute. And then that's one column. Column number 2 is how growable are they? Scale of 1 to 10. Doesn't have to be exact. You can have 2 number 10s. Like this is not a ranked order. This is a score. This is an assessment. Okay. How growable are they? Scale of 1 to 10. How accessible are they? That's the last column, column 3. How accessible are they? Scale of 1 to 10. And then, really simply, and I don't have this on my slide, I apologize. It's in the blog. I know that Tim shared with you.
We'll share that link out. Yep.
But growable, 10 is at the top, 1 is at the bottom. Accessible, 10 is on the left, 1 is on the right. And 5 and 5 would be right in the middle. So someone who's 5-5 would be right in the middle. So plot the points.
Jeff, while they're working on them, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back to the time management. And the light went off. I've always been a proponent when people say, "Well, tell me about time management." I said, "Well, to me, it's really behavior management." But what I learned from listening to you, it's almost more choice management, like choosing. Like I never thought of it like that. Everybody say, "Oh, tell me about time management." Now, well, it's behavior management. You have to have the right behaviors, but it really is the choices. It's the choices we make every day, every minute of the day.
Yeah, I mean it's priorities, and you know, gosh, what was it? I just heard it the other day. Was it in a song or something like that? Is what you want is where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell. You know, it's one thing to say things, but your actions, the things that you do, the positions you put yourself in every single day, that's where you are. You find the people that you're surrounded with, you find the environment that you live in, you find the things that you're willing to tolerate. And I don't want to get too mystical or you know, metaphysical or anything here, but like, you know, Jim Rohn said that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Oh, that happens at work. That happens at school. It happens at home. It happens at your church or wherever. If you have a place of worship, it happens in your community. You know, you can say all you want, but your actions reflect your priorities. And that is presented in your current surroundings. Who are you spending your Saturday mornings with? Thanks for spending them with me for that matter.
Well, you helped. I've been dragging Tim down forever. So now the average is good.
David, you have lifted me up, but I was scratching down when Victoria said, "Who do you need to get away from?" No, I'm just kidding. Jeff, I wrote this down because this really stuck. My time block isn't the issue. The issue is, and this is what you said, I just rephrased. The issue is I don't do the time blocked worthy action because of my distraction with other urgent actions that are popping in. And then you said this: everywhere I go, I am, or everywhere you go, you're there.
There you are. Yeah.
It's like you are. And I'm like, ouch. You're ouch.
I mean, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, Tim. I mean,
no, please.
You got a lot to be proud of, and you know, you should feel pretty good being you. But let's think about, you know, if you were doing what needed to be done, you'd be getting the results you're looking for. Who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm perfect. I'm going to sit here and tell you that for the last couple of weeks, I've ignored my writing block. Every morning, 7 a.m., there it is. And the last couple of weeks, you know, I've been sleeping that well. There's just been a lot of stuff going on, and it's easy to fall out of these routines. It's easy to say, I'll get to that later. I do it too. Okay. So I'm not here to tell you that I'm better than everybody and I've got this thing mastered. Again, here's the things that we have to do though. Because like I said at the top of this, I know what I need to do. Hell, so do you. Don't even act like you don't know what you need to do. Here's the thing. When you act like you don't know what you need to do, you go looking for some tip that someone else can give you. That's this radical new idea that's going to change your world. It's going to change your space. It doesn't happen that way because there isn't a whole lot else that's out there. There is no new app in development in Silicon Valley or somewhere else that is going to rewire your brain and actually make you do the things you said you were going to do. And if you did all the things that you said you were going to do exactly when you said you were going to do them, that would actually make you quite robotic and boring. And I don't choose to hang out with people like that. They don't inspire me. You know, maybe some of that's admirable. And then you think about that, you carry it out to its logical conclusion. You're like, really? Okay. You sound like a ton of fun, guy. Right? Like, well, you got to think about, you know, what you're actually asking for. But when we think about the things that get in our way, because we all have them, some of those are within our control, some of those are outside of our control. And so that's where real growth comes from. It's, all right, I missed my time block again. Why? What's on my mind? What am I missing? What am I thinking about? Is it really a discipline issue? Do I need more sleep? Do I need a clearer head? Do I have some kind of anxiety that I'm really afraid of that I need to tackle? Is that maybe manifesting itself in ways in my life that I hadn't thought about before? Do I need to talk to somebody about that? Do I need a friend? Do I need a partner? Do I need a spouse? Do I need a therapist? Do I need a coach? Do I need whoever? Do I need some kind of a trusted advisor to bounce these ideas off of? But see, the thing is, we go back to this vulnerability thing again. If you're not willing to get vulnerable with someone to tackle this stuff, you're not going to find the truth. And when you just go to a online virtual summit or a podcast or a blog or a video, or you buy a course or you go to some conference, your invulnerability is causing you to look for something that doesn't exist. And now we're getting away from the truth. So don't just think about time management or prospecting or what, oh, I know, if I just had this software. No. You know what you need to do. You're not doing it. So instead of looking for a new way to do it, think about why the things that are getting in your way are getting in your way. Think about that instead.
There's a great comment in the chat from Sabrina. Is it that I just really don't want to do it? Like I'm missing the time block, and that it can manifest. Like, is it like, what is the importance of that I thought was important?
Yeah.
not your writing block, but in general. I mean, that's a great question.
Well, a lot of the things that we have to do, we don't really want to do. Right.
Mhm.
But is it important enough to do anyway? That's the thing. Right. Or I love what's going on in here too. Janine, is it that my priorities have changed? You have to ask yourself that. You have to ask yourself that regularly. It's never the next new thing, but what am I willing to choose to prioritize? Exactly, Victoria. Thank you. And how do you make a consequence for not doing what we have to do? Ooh. All right. Bill. Woo.
That's like the curse word jar.
Yeah. Okay. Does it stop you from cursing?
No,
Right?
you raised a lot of money for charity.
So right. So Jill, here's the question. And this gets into a different philosophy altogether, though. Do you want to punish yourself for not doing it? Or do you already recognize what that consequence is? Right? The consequence of not prospecting is not growing your business. Right? The consequence of me not writing means that there's a lot of content that isn't getting out there. The consequence of not going to the gym could be, it doesn't even have to be the gym. The consequence of not being physically active has all kinds of these health implications and things like that. But what we have to think about is whether or not the reward for doing the prospecting falls in line with our integrity. So, Tim, you mentioned at the top during my introduction that, it's all about selling like you. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. How to do your very best work. I believe your very best work comes along when you are selling in integrity. And I don't just mean saying what you're going to do and then doing what you say. What I mean is, do you have alignment between what you sell, who you sell it to, how you sell it, and why you sell it? If you don't have alignment in those 4 areas, you are going to run into unnecessary resistance. So, Jill, I would flip your question back on you and say, do you need a consequence for not doing it? Or do you need better alignment with why you should be doing it in the first place?
Good.
That's at the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I don't get up and write every day. I have a book in me. It's already been written probably twice, probably 3 or 4 books have been written. Dave has been following my blog for years. I've written every Sunday for the last 8 years. I'm at like, I don't know, 400 and some odd. They're all numbered. I have to look back. But between that and, 700 podcast episodes that I put out and all this stuff, the content's out there. Right? It needs to be condensed. It needs to be organized. It needs to be published in that regard. But I don't have the focus right now. I don't have the integrity right now in exactly where I want to put all of that content, which is why the book hasn't been formulated yet. It's why the book hasn't been organized yet. I haven't made the decision of, here is the direction I'm going to. I'm going to be laser focused here. I don't need a swear jar. I don't need a Jeff didn't write today, put a quarter in a jar. I don't need a consequence. Here's the thing. I don't need to be punished for not doing that thing that I know I should be doing. I need more clarity around why it's so important to do. The thing that I need less of in my house is guilt. Because guilt doesn't help me. 20 lashes with a wet noodle is not going to motivate me anymore. Layering guilt on top of my, let's call it a lack of performance. That might be a harsh word in this case, but like layering that on top is not going to help me solve it. So what's productively going to help me do that thing I know I need to do? Yeah. So that's how I would kind of toss that question back to you, Jill. But thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's a really powerful question.
And that's a great point, Jeff, because I think the world and poor leadership has punished us enough, and some of us come from environments where those around us maybe punished us. So our first action is to go and punish ourselves and bring in the guilt. And no, we don't win in that scenario. No one wins.
Yeah, I love that you went to alignment, Jeff, because I think that's again kind of going and figuring out how I don't want to get there. Like, how do I not want to get? I don't want to get to success with all the wrong clients. I don't want to get to success beating my team up. I don't want to get to success with mapping out how I don't want. Like, I don't want to sit down at the next roundtable executive planning session and the same stuff's on my pipeline. Like, why? I want to move it forward or off and really stay fresh. Like, so reimagining, I think, and getting better alignment, having more integrity. I love that you went to alignment, because oftentimes it's me out of alignment.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Well, that's going to happen too. Here's the thing. Let's also stop pretending that we can set it and forget it, and it's just going to be smooth sailing from here. Life is not smooth sailing. That's why it's fun. It's why it's hard. It's why it's painful. It's why it's sad. It's why it's enlightening. It's why it's exciting. It's why it's all of these things. We do not want so much rudimentary repetition that everything becomes boring. The highs and lows are there for a reason. They're to remind you that there are lows and highs to come, and to take advantage and to take notice, to appreciate where we are at the moment. Like, I don't know, this has gone way outside of a sales discussion at this point. And Allison just joined, and she's like, who is this dude? I was following a time management discussion. But we have to think about our motivations. We have to think about the things that get in our way, because those influence our priorities. Our priorities are reflected by our actions, whether we say they will be or not. And that's how it all lines up.
And Jeff, back to your quadrants, just as we're ending, like refining sales focus. When you're talking about quadrant 3 and the people that we could spend half the time with and still retain all the business, I think refining our focus comes down to, are we getting ruthlessly relevant with what actually matters to them, and just cutting out the extra things that we are guilting ourselves into doing? They probably don't want donuts in 2024. They probably are trying to lose weight in 2024. It's like, so I love that you went there too. So refining our questions, refining our focus into, and here's the other thing. Time blocking, you can have your calendar perfectly mapped out, or you can actually create some margin in your calendar, so you can actually, use the restroom between Zooms. I mean, what a novel idea. But do more of the right things if you're in alignment. So I think less is more. Refine the focus. What really matters? So this has all been sales, and it all starts up wherever I am, wherever I go, I am. So
wherever you go, there you are. There. Yes,
I are. You are.
Yes.
Woo.
And I've eaten into Allison's time. Allison, send me an invoice. I'll make sure.
I popped in and I heard alignment and values and prioritization, and I got all excited and hyped up, because I'm 100%. Jeff, you and I have to connect.
For sure. We'll make that happen.
Jeff, thanks for joining us today. And we have like 5 buffer minutes between, so you're good. We're starting at 10:15 with Allison, but man, on point every time. Your quadrants, man, everybody who is on today just got something that, I mean, the recipe is so good. So thank you for sharing that, your willingness to, and we'll share out the blog with the 5 questions to everybody after this, just so we don't make Jeff repeat those, unless you just want to repeat them in rapid fire as you go.
Which the 5 questions?
5 power questions to get a refer. Like, why'd you use us?
Why'd you start doing business with us? Can you please be more specific? Why do you continue to do business with us? Do you know anybody else that might appreciate the same value? And would you be willing to introduce us?
There they are. Because I know that was one other question in the chat. So thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Jeff, let's catch up soon, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Folks, if you're on and do need to go get the resplash on the coffee or use the restroom or whatever, feel free to do it. We do have 1 minute here, but Allison, welcome, joining us from the sunny. Is it sunny out there? Is the sun even up out there on the West Coast yet, or the Mountain Time coast?
So I am in Colorado. In fact, right now I am calling in from Winter Park, Colorado. And when we wrap up, I'm getting on my mountain bike.